Right. Yeah. Shh, shh, shh. Hello. Are we okay? Yes. Hello, everybody who would like to come in for the press conference. We're starting any moment. So, hello and welcome to the press conference in the Swiss Pavilion at the 59th Arte Biennale di Venezia. It's very nice that so many of you have been able to come here, but I would also like to say hello to everybody who's joining us in our live stream. And I am Chantal Hirschi from the Swiss Arts Council, Helvetia, and I'm very happy to welcome you very warmly today. So I don't know how about you, but we were really looking forward to this year's Biennale. It has been quite a long time where we have been in social isolation, so maybe this year's Biennale can also be a little breather, a moment where we can immerse ourselves in a fantastic parallel world of the Biennale and that Venice has to offer in the next couple of months. In our case, this is the fantastic world of the concert, created by Latifa Eshaksh, Francesco Stocchi, Anne Wekström, and Alexandre Babel. Also joining us is Madeleine Schupli. She is leading through the roundtable discussion afterwards. And we would like to take the next hour to get you more acquainted with the concert, also having a discussion and answer your questions at the end. So for most of you, you probably had the chance to go through the installation, but for everybody that can't be in Venice right now and everybody who wants to see a little bit more, we have prepared a movie, a making-of film, short making-of film of 5 minutes. Inside the pavilion, you will be able to see it here. It might be a bit difficult because of the lighting, but you can also see it later on online. And yes, we would be ready to watch it now. Thank you.
The participation of Switzerland at the Venice Biennale is part of Helvetia's main goal to create visibility for Swiss contemporary artists abroad. Each year we come to this pavilion and see a new project and are invited into a new world. And Latifa invites us here in this immersive environment and lets us forget about time and space for a moment.
Well, this project started with the end. Latifa came to me and said, Francesco, I would like that coming out of the pavilion, visitors carry the same feeling after coming out of a concert.
You enter in the pavilion with a sensation to arrive at the end of an event, the end of a ritual. You arrive, you are already walking in the ashes of what was supposed to be play in that space. And the more you walk, you enter on the sculpture reappearing in their normal size, and they are not damaged anymore. I really wanted to have this idea of cycle of the day. I chose to put this foil of orange in all the window. This orange is really this link in between the day and night, and the night and day. And the orange is also the same color than a fire and this ritual.
The light is already present in the whole reality of the pavilion, and we added to it a light composition, which is happening in the central room, which I helped composing and developing. I'm used to make music that happens in time, be it for a concert situation or for a recording of music, for composition. In the case of a project like this one, the timing is very different because It's not an evening, it's not an hour concert, it's over 6 months of opening exhibition. We are creating a work which can be understood even if you spend 4 minutes in the pavilion or if you spend 2 hours.
There was a lot of different thoughts and layers, and one part was the graphical things, which you can see also outside. And then there's the flashing and something that reminds from the concert, and also the different dimmed realities to create some dynamic.
With this project, I really challenged myself a lot by completely positioning myself as a musician and not anymore as a visual artist. Just to have a different consciousness of things and to arrive in a territory when I do not understand the language, when I do not understand the vocabulary, and when I do not understand the mechanism. So all the project that we do, it was like to be able to speak with Alexandre and to speak with Anne and to understand what it is, what it's done, like in our memory, in our sense, in our idea of time, in our body, well, how music enacts in us.
This idea of traveling back in time is what we propose to the public, but at the same time is what we experienced, going to the core of what music is. And the core of music maybe can transcend sound itself.
So during the planning of the project, we realized that we need quite a lot of material to produce this installation. And we came across the association Biennale, and they reuse material from earlier biennials. So the wood, for instance, that we see here used for the sculptures of Latifa was used before, had a former life in another pavilion. And after this year's biennial, it will be reused next year by another country.
I like this idea of cycle, and I consider always like that. The gravel will stay around. It's the same gravel that in the Giardini. So next time I will walk in the Giardini, maybe in 10 years, and we will walk in the gravel that was here.
Thank you very much. So this short film will be available on Prolvezia/live if you want to see it after the press conference. And now I'm happy to hand over to Madeleine Schupli for the roundtable discussion.
Thank you, Chantal. So a very warm welcome to all of you also from my side. We're happy to present you this year's project here, and I'm very happy that also those who are not here physically could, through the film, already get an impression of the project. We will here present the project with a discussion amongst us, and I quickly go through. This is Latifa, the artist. She's living in Vevey. Francesco Stocchi, curator at the Boijmans van Beuningen, living in Rotterdam and Milano. And Anne Wegström, she's the lighting designer from Helsinki. And Alexandre Babel, musician, composer, curator as well, living in between Geneva and Berlin. And also the project was chosen by a national and international jury that Prolvezia appointed. And this jury had the following members. It was Laurence Bonvin, Riccardo Lisi, Francesca Martini, Yvette Mutumba, and Ryan Wolfs. So let's get started. We first plan to talk about the history of the development of the project, followed by some questions regarding the team and the collaboration between all of you, and then asking ourselves some questions about the impact of the finished project then. So, Latifa, we start with a general question, like, what was your idea concerning this project? What was the starting point? What were the inspiration that made you start, or visions that made you start working on this project?
The starting point was that before the end of 2019, I went to a lot of concerts, a lot of performances, and I experimented that in a very intensive way, trying to understand and to live some event that can bring me something. And when I received the invitation to participate to the commission, the first thing that came to my mind was, I want people to feel like after a concert. So then it was just start with a question, actually, not with an idea, but a question, and to make possible to understand this question and to go more far, I invited Francesco and Alexandra, and then after Anne. And so the starting point was just to be able to understand my practice and the thing that I want to share with people, but from another angle, as a musician theorist, and then to be able to go more deeper and more consciousness about the thing I can give to the people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then an aspect that was already mentioned in the film, that the material that you used, the theme of sustainability is really important in this project with the cycle of life and ecological questions. Could you, Francesco, tell us a bit about this?
Yes, precisely. The aspect of sustainability is crucial to this project. But what is most interesting that we arrived there through the process and through respecting one of the main aspect of this work in the pavilion, which is the idea of cycle. So with respect to this thematic, we ended up working with a company based in Marghera called Biennale, whose interest is working with leftovers of previous pavilions. And so the materials that surround you, this wood, this gravel, has a life, has an experience. And then the way it was presented and installed will allow to have other future experiences. So with continuation of this cycle and of this regeneration. It's a regeneration of life and of materials.
Mm-hmm. And then, Latifa, are there any guiding themes that are important to you in your work in general and that are reflected now in this current project that we are surrounded by here now in Venice?
I like to destroy things, to build and to damage it. It's not because I'm violent, it's just because I hope so much in beauty and poetry that I need to go very far until the point of resistance of it. So when you see a piece destroyed there, for example, this Buddha Zen figure, you can feel that it's sad and violent, but in the other end, it's remember you the Buddha figure. It's a Zen figure that everybody knows. So it's to play in these two levels of things. The beauty on the Zen of that, and the quietness of this figure, and at the same time, the violence and the destruction of it. And it's not to destroy the beauty, it's to make the beauty and the poetry stronger. So the first thing that you see in the pavilion is some very dramatic and traumatic image. Of course, it's like devastation, and we experiment that like very recently, but from many years also. But also when you go inside and you experiment the musical piece inside, you get out with a feeling of joy. So I like to work with the amplitude of these two different feelings. In a way. So this thing I really understand more deeper. It was present in my work since ever. I had to assume it because I am a very joyful person, and it's difficult for me to admit that I'm messing up things, especially in exhibition space and museums. Not in my life, huh? But and then with this project to understand the musical approach of any gesture, make me understand that this amplitude of feeling I'm using, it's only like some composer can do when they write a polyphonic song. And it's to work with these two opposition things, to have the big high notes and the big low note, and to have the both of them make you the right tone of things. So my work is about how to find the right tone in this complex society.
And to find this tone, speaking about the team now, you gathered this team. What made you not just to invite a curator, but also write a composer, a musician, a lighting designer? What made you put this team together as it was?
So artists in general, when we are like working on the display of an exhibition, we can work alone, of course, but sometimes to be more efficient, to go more far, we can choose to work with an architect or with a scenographer. And here, the work was done very beautifully by Bruno Giacometti. So I had already the architect in a way, and I thought that this parcours, this walk, this setup could be managed by a musician. And that's why I chose Alexandre Babel. He's a composer working on percussion. He compose and play very raw material, very simple. You knock on something to get a sound. And he has the ability of doing all this layer of different gesture and to create music with that. And I thought that he will be the right person because I'm working with very simple material and I'm making a very simple gesture with them. So he's kind of the same like I am in a different field. And Francesco, we used to work together for a project we did in Rome together. And during our process of installation, you know, like artist and curator, we share something about our life. And then I heard that he was a DJ of dub music before. So I thought that I know that he's like super smart, clever, he have a knowledge of art history and contemporary art very strong, but I know that he will understand what I mean by feel the rhythm in the body, because he used to make people move, so he know that. And Anne Wegström, when we were about to find who can be this virtuose of the light, I saw some of the light shows she did with in concerts, and especially one in La Gaîté Lyrique in Paris, a concert of Sunho, the group of Stephen O'Malley. And I saw her very fabulous, strong, very sensitive, multi-layer feeling of the light process. So I thought that she will fit perfectly in this team. And that's exactly each one. Yeah.
So Alexandre, your role as a musician, composer is really important for the project, but at the same time, the project is silent. So you told me that you experimented with this before, but still it's surprising. And what kind of challenges did this bring to be here as a musician, but not spread any sounds or music as this might is expected?
So it's a challenge and it's an excitement at the same time. When you take out the sound, you take out one very important element in my practice. What happens when you do this? You become an awareness of all the other things that are not sound, and these things, I believe, when I produce a musical project, I believe in the context. I believe in any object which is within the musical experience that is part of the music. Here we have everything. We have the architecture, we have the sculptures of Latifa, we have the outside world, the inside world in the room there. So we have a lot of elements that are already here, and without the sound we're making the people aware of all these elements. And Latifa didn't only take out one very important element of my practice, she gave me another one. She gave me the light. She told me, we want to do something with the light, and I had the chance to do it in collaboration with Anne Wegström here. And the light, in this case, is the raw material that I was using to compose the music. And I had the chance, it was a big challenge, but also a big chance to understand how light can turn into a structure that I believe is musical. And the mix between these lights, the way we worked on it in this room there, the architecture and the sculpture, to me, it's a whole. So the composition is not only in the room, in the middle room, it starts when you do the first step, when a visitor is entering the pavilion, doing the first step here, walking through the pavilion and coming back afterwards. And the whole composition is completed at that moment.
Mm-hmm. And this brings us to Anna. Your role was kind of to transform the composition of Alexandre into light. How was it? Because usually you're a renowned lighting designer for stages. You work for big bands, for circuses, for theaters. While here we have a kind of a platform, but with no actors, no spectacle going on. How was that?
For me too, it was a great experience. And the first thing, working with Alexander, we had to figure out, because there was no music, so we had to learn to communicate and find words and how we define different things. So how we can start to compose this lighting piece. And the other things, usually I work in a two-dimensional world when there is a stage, but here people will be inside of the work, and the lights will be all around them. So even if you focus and watch something, there's something else happening behind you. So the perception is completely different. And the other different thing is the time, because usually the concert has a clear beginning and the ending. But here, how we compose the piece is that whatever time you enter the room can be and will be the right beginning. And when you leave the room, it's the ending for you. So there is no linear or exact time for beginning or end.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be interesting for everybody to know how this transformation of the music to the light design happened, actually, because you didn't write the score and passed on the sheet to Anne, but it worked in a different way. How did this transformation go about?
I think at this stage we can talk a little bit about the working process, which was very special in this case, because we didn't want to start with a musical piece which we wanted to turn into lights. We wanted to create music through lights. So there was no musical piece at the beginning. But I thought it would be a good idea to make a score of this lights composition. So I had something in my head which I put into paper before coming in here and work with Anne. When we tried to do we realized it wasn't working at all. Because I'm used to work with sound, and sound is one thing, it has its own materiality, the sound wave has its materiality in space, and light works completely differently. That's the first thing. And the second thing, as Anne mentioned, we were in a three-dimensional space. So there was no way of writing a score that would work and function before being inside the space, before being with the sculptures and inside this pavilion. So the very work started when the pavilion was finished and we sat down here with Anne, with all the lights, and started composing the music together without any kind of sound or music.
Sure.
And the technical detail, we ended the installation of the whole pavilion in the end of February, and from that date we give the tool to them, and they were like alone in the space working on the lights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Francesco, I read in interviews that you compared the group of yours, the team, to a band. So how does this analogy work?
One thing, maybe the thing I like most about art, or the reason why I work in this field, is art needs to survive, to evolve, needs to break a protocol, demands even the breaking of a protocol or overcoming a tradition. So we could say that art is in itself rebellious as a nature, which I found fantastic.
different than other fields, of course. And this was a chance to step out of the axis artist, curator, curator, artist, and actually to work chorally. So if you make a mistake, it affects everyone, and which can be even interesting to that experience of spread. But we really worked again in a sort of cycle together, and so out of this unilateral or bilateral actually axis, but with respect to a sense of community, with respect of a sense of collaboration, where each role was slightly shifted from the role we are used to embody and to present, and therefore the strength of collaboration was even stronger in exchange, and that also was possible due to the time. We worked more than 2 years together, and so also that evolved in time over the month.
And you use this time as well to really immersively learn and go ahead with your relationship to music, right?
Yes. So really in the beginning it was I am a polite person, so I just wanted to be to have good conversation with the musician I invite. So I wanted to challenge him in the discussion. So I started to learn to read a lot of musicology, a lot of things about what is music, music history, music philosophy. And then I understand fastly that I have to practice to really understand what is sound. So I started to I took the chance of having 1 year more to be able to learn to sing, to use my voice, and to know how the sound can come from my body and I can modulate it. And also I learn instruments, alto, guitar, drum, not in a very far way. Do not, I'm not ready for a concert tomorrow, but in a way that I just can understand what's happened in my body physically, what it means. And then it was a very strong revelation in a way, because then I understand that sound was much more complex than what I thought. To knock on something, it's not only to knock, it's you give a pulse and it came back to you with the stick. You have the vibration of the instrument, you have the vibration of the space around you, and then that opens something very, very large in my spirit. And so that's, this process I do, and slowly that it's happened to give to me another layer in my life as a perceptor of sensation that I never had before. I was listen to music a lot, but I never understand what is music, what is sound, how you can read the world around you according to your ear, what it changes, level of consciousness. You can just close your eyes and you feel several layers of perception that I never thought. I practice that as a visual artist. I know very professionally how to do it, but with my ear, it was like so large and so intense and very, very interesting. So I think the present I give to myself during the process of the work, it's that I really open a big part of my senses, and I open a part of the world that I do not had a conscious of it before.
Mm-hmm. So we could look now or talk about the finished project where we stand in. And I would like to start with you. Like, what kind of experience would you like the viewer of the project to go through? With what kind of feeling would you like the people to leave the pavilion?
It's always a tricky question, because I set everything to create feeling. So then you want me to say, but just everything is very simple to understand. The moment you walk, you produce a sound. The thing that you see, it produces a feeling inside of you. All the parts that you feel in the process, everything was written in a way. And we I wanted to really to create an experience that is a little bit total, let's say total, and to give this different layer. And the thing I said before about this amplitude of feeling, the sadness and the joy, I did everything to have that feeling on the viewer.
And the project has like 3 parts, or I'd say 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
It has the exhibition, the book that we will talk about in a minute, and then the vinyl. So, Alexander, you produced sounds which are not to be heard here, but afterwards we can hear them. There's a link, we can download it. There's a link in the book. There will be a physical vinyl later on. So tell us about the sounds that you then created, the real sounds.
Well, first of all, there's something about, again, I'm going back to the genesis of the project. There's something about the process of working on this pavilion for 2.5 years that was about sharing a lot. And we shared a lot of discussions, and we sat down at home listening to music together. So we were indeed working on this pavilion, but there was more to it. There were sounds that we wanted to hear, and then sounds that we wanted to produce. This vinyl is the sound that we wanted to produce. It's actually it's the sound imprint of the visit of the pavilion. It's something that you can listen to after you have visited the pavilion, and that will make you remember this visit. It's actually the music which is on this vinyl. You will not see it here, you will not hear it here, apart from one element, which is the element of field recordings. We did record some sounds in this very space where you're all sitting here today, but we did it before building the pavilion. So this vinyl contains some field recordings, some sounds that do exist from real sounds, and composed music, which you will not hear in the pavilion, but which happen in our heads, which were the result of all these talks and sharing that we had been in the process of the making. The vinyl as an object will appear at the end of the Biennale, at the end of November. It consists on one single work of 22 minutes. 22 minutes is the length that you can put on one side of a vinyl, but it's actually already available now as a streaming for everyone who's get their hands on the QR code, which is outside, or in the link which is in the catalog. And this is something that we encourage people to listen to after they have visited the pavilion, as a memory sound imprint of this exhibition.
The other dimension I just mentioned, if we move on, talk a bit about the book, it's not just a catalog. It's really a book that will stay, I'm convinced. You invited so many people and voices to write in the book. There are dialogues, there are texts of all kind of different people with different knowledge. How did you go about the concept and of the book, and who did you invite to contribute to it?
So this book is 13 texts or something. I do not like to make numbers, but there is like many texts. I ask for authors with some question, and it's a way directed a pointer of research. There is interview we did with a musician, musicologue, philosopher, and all that is a kind of a concentration of every question that came to my mind. I just called the authors to help me to answer that question. It's easy sometimes, but it's also like some colleagues of this journey that are visible in this catalog. I wrote a text in the beginning that also was a little bit particular for me, because I never want to show to people how I think, because I think that it's too complex or too bizarre sometimes, but it's a way to share to people everything that came to my mind in these 2 last years, all the little discovery, you know, the bird of a sound, the sound of a bird, and the sound of the wind, or things like that, that has as much importance than philosopher books. And also, yes, there is like many of them. And one thing I wanted to say, like in addition, is like maybe 3/4 of the catalogue, you have only images of the empty pavilion. And it's like a tribute to the place. And also because we are a passage, like we only here a few months, actually. But the building in itself is really a big part of the work. And yes. So it's heavy. Yeah, it's heavy. Yes, we can say a lot of things. This is the size of a score book. I do not like to invent things, so I know that the perfect space to talk about music is a book of scores, and we took just the size of it, and then we only use 2 colors, orange and black, and it makes things like really amazing effect with the work we did with Norm graphic design group. And yeah, it's empty there. It's blank. You just have the lines, and yeah.
I come to the last 2 questions. One from Francesco. I mean, you're a creator with a vast international experience, and this project here now, the concept, if you try to look a bit from another perspective, how do you see it reflected in contemporary topics of today's art?
Well, both in terms of content and the process, it does reflect in a way. I think you have 2 categories, 2 ways artists respond to invitation of a national pavilion. Some offer a confirmation of the reasons and the language for which they were asked to represent their country. Others use this as an opportunity to try something new, something that responds to the specific conditions the Biennale, the unique exhibition model the Biennale represents. And here we are in the second category. And through this unicity, we really developed something which was, as we said, on site, which grow here, and therefore we used the time available to develop that. But we developed a project which was presented and born in December 19. Nothing since has changed from our first idea. I think great artists carry a sensibility that goes much beyond the chronicles, the news of every day, and that's the main reason I think it's a project which is absolutely relevant of today.
Mm-hmm. So this brings us to the last question for Latifa. Sadly, since the setup of the installation, the geopolitical landscape in Europe changed dramatically. Here we have scenery with burned elements. Makes us think maybe to news images that we see all the time now. Makes us think of what's happening in Ukraine. How do you see your project? If you think of that in combination with that, is there a relationship you can build, or how do you deal with this?
I'm not used to be a very frontal artist. I like discretion. I like subtle references, multi-layer of understanding. But so it means that every time something happens, like since late 2019, like many fires, We had a lot of wars in several parts of the world since the beginning of the project. We had a pandemic that was not planned, and oh yes, it was planned, but there is like many things that happen on all the time. I was like facing my work on the project and thinking that, is this still relevant to do it? Can I still assume to present this kind of work now? And actually something very simple came to my mind, like we know since ages that there is wars, since ages there is fire, catastrophe, and all that. So maybe it's part of something that humanity experiments since ages, and every time the society have to rebuild itself. And it's also this thing of a cycle that every society, civilization have to build back things or to build something new from the ashes. Because at the end, when you destroy everything, what stay? And the thing that stay, actually, I understand it's this hope in the humanity to be able to reconstruct and to go over things.
Thank you. So I pass back to Chantal.
Thank you very much for this very interesting insights. We have already talked a bit about the project, but maybe now there would be questions from your side. We have a microphone over here where we could bring it to you. And over here as well. Anybody have a question for the artists? Not at the moment. I also have the chat open. Just check if I have something here. So there's also a greeting from Culture Valais. They wrote in the chat. Yeah, it's amazing. So thank you. And there's one question: if you ever considered to add the element of sound like inside the installation, or it was always planned to stay silent?
No, it was very clear from the beginning. Not clear, I just have to assume it. I have to assume to invite a musician and to be able to have the strength to tell him, you won't have instruments, they won't have sound, so you still want to work with me? And so no, it was really clear from the beginning. I really think that the thing that came to my mind is maybe music starts after the sound happens. Like when people listen to music and have it in their memory, and then they go back their place and they close their eyes, then the real concert starts. Because then we can figure out and read it in another way, and different way, and we can mix it, and we can silence some part and stretch the other. They are composing. The memory is composing about our experience. So I really think that it's when the music starts. So this silence was really part of the material I used.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, we have something to announce for this Friday, right?
Yes, I would love to announce. We have an event for which we teamed up with the Pavilion of Australia, because there Marco Fussato is showing, maybe you have already seen it, a project where music is very important and even very loud. You can really hear it, as in comparison to here. And I think this will be an interesting conversation between Marco, the artist, the curator, and the team here. And this is on Friday evening. I hope you're still in Venice at 6:30 at Palazzo Grassi. There's still some seats available, and if you're interested, at the press desk at the entrance, you can sign in if you would like to come.
Okay. Thank you. So we would like to wrap it up here. So for those who are still going to enter the exhibition, please wear your masks. Inside there's mask. And thank you so much.
Thank you.